I want to talk about how Stripe fared in the pandemic because such a massive amount of business came online and Stripe was powering a lot of that. And then there was a lot of business that didn't happen because of the pandemic. What are the trends that you saw through the pandemic on Stripe?
Yeah, it was obviously a very interesting and serious time. On the business side, I would say we saw two really interesting trends. One is it was clearly very disruptive for small businesses, and depending on kind of which sector people were in, the impact was felt differently. But I think the big advantage that small businesses have over large businesses is they can turn on a dime and they can really change things. And so we saw that with a lot of the small businesses on Stripe, where if you needed to completely reorient yourself to trade online. We saw this with Roll Bicycles in Ohio, with Jane Russell's Handmade Sausages in Ireland, where they lost half their sales overnight, but were able to retool to go online. And so I think we saw the structural advantages that small businesses have in the form of agility actually start to play out. And if you look at the numbers, we actually saw a higher rate of new business creation during the pandemic than we had seen previously. And so that number actually ticked up. And then we also saw on the large and kind of traditional enterprise side, many more large companies retooling themselves for digital stuff than we had seen previously. And so you can imagine, say you're working at a large established company, a grocery retailer or something like this, and you've been banging the drum internally for many years that, hey, we need to take our digital ordering seriously or something like this. This was the year where they finally got those projects out and really saw massive growth of them. And so this is actually something that's somewhat newer for Stripe. We obviously got our start with startups, but we're now working with a lot of traditional enterprises. Think of Waitrose in the UK or Harris Teeter here, or companies like that, to help them launch their brand new digital offerings.
So your big virtual conference, Stripe Sessions, is coming up. What is the next phase of growth as the world reopens? What does that look like?
Well, one thing that's interesting to us is we think of the pandemic as a time when everything moved to completely digital, right? All commerce was e-commerce or something like that. If you look at the raw numbers, it was a massive bump. It was an acceleration of multiple years. But if you actually just look at the raw numbers for a second, you see retail sales in the United States moved from 11% to 14% online. But we're still talking about penetrations in the teens overall. So the big thing that we're focused on, and we have talked about this before, Emily, is the fact that there is still so much room to grow ahead. And I find that quite exciting, in that if you're thinking about starting an e-commerce company today, I think it's actually a fabulous time to do so, because retail is still only 14% online penetration in the United States, yet there's been so much habit forming that's taken place over the past, say, 2 years. The other thing that we're really excited about is Stripe continues to branch out and broaden the set of products that we're building on behalf of our users. So we try to take an extremely user-first approach in the products that we built. We now have the benefit of the millions of businesses on Stripe. In fact, we had 2 million businesses join Stripe since the start of 2020. We can just go ask them. We don't have to overcomplicate it. We don't have to be too smart about what we're building. We can just go ask them what is causing them friction, what would make their life easier. And so you saw 2 big new launches in the lead up to Stripe Sessions. Stripe Tax, which handles sales tax and VAT for businesses. This is something that's incredibly complex, big lift, not something that any business owner enjoys spending time on. And then Stripe Identity, where, as you're probably familiar with, all sorts of different businesses need to do some kind of identity verification, and Stripe Identity makes it simple for them to do it.
Right, and obviously that is so important as we continue to see these cyber attacks on the rise. Speaking of users, back in 2018, you stopped processing Bitcoin payments, saying that not enough people were interested in doing them. And now, we've seen more institutional adoption and obviously a lot of individual investors buying in. Has your thinking evolved on crypto?
Well, I think our thinking on crypto has always been fairly nuanced. And to be clear, we are extraordinarily enthusiastic Bitcoin fans, in that if you think of the kind of world that crypto people and we are trying to bring about, I think it's a very related set of goals. And so one thing we're really hung up on is 22% of commerce today is cross-border. That's it. Like, it feels like it should be much higher, especially on the internet, where it's so easy to have cross-border interactions. But yet we're stuck down at this level where only a fifth of interactions are cross-border, and it's actually very hard to have any kind of meaningful cross-border interaction. And so crypto is one very exciting direction for trying to solve that. But also, the kind of stuff Stripe is doing, where we're making it really easy to handle non-US payment methods or kind of non-locally based payment methods like Alipay or GrabPay or something like this, is another approach. And I think we should pursue all approaches and see what works. We should be pursuing them in parallel. On Bitcoin in particular, I think rightly it gets a lot of angst in the crypto community, the fact that transaction fees on both Bitcoin and Ethereum, the two main cryptocurrencies, are still too high. And so there's all manner of interesting kind of work going on solving that between the Lightning Network and some of the Solana and some of the new chains and Stellar and things like that. And so we'll see what works. But is this a problem that needs solving? The fact that it's still way too hard to have a cross-border interaction, and the fact that people in a long tail of countries are still so underserved? Absolutely, it's a problem. And we're picking kind of another approach to solve that. I mean, this is why we acquired Paystack, quite recently. Africa broadly has been really underserved for a long time when it comes to digital commerce infrastructure. And again, we're taking our approach towards solving that.
So Stripe recently raised another massive round of funding, your valuation approaching $100 billion. Maybe it's beyond that, and we don't know yet. The Wall Street Journal just published a story that there's a ton of investor interest. Is the next step being a public company?
Look, it's a cliche, and I feel like this happens every time we come on the show, but, we still have no plans to IPO, and we're just very hung up on that long-term opportunity. There's lots of fun stuff for us to do there. We just had two big major new product categories that we opened up here. And so, we're having lots of fun building Stripe. There's a massive opportunity in front of us. And look, maybe we do, maybe we don't someday, but right now we have no plans.
All right. Now, you made some disruptive moves in remote work, giving workers a $20,000 bonus if they left high-cost cities like New York, like San Francisco, but also accepted a 10% pay cut. I'm curious how many employees took you up on that and how that's changing the distribution of your workforce.
Yeah, I don't know the exact number to that question off the top of my head. We saw a pretty major uptake where I think there were a lot of people where they took advantage of all the remote working that was going on last year to be able to move to be closer to their families, to somewhere they wanted to move previously. And so the way we think about Stripe is, I think we have not come to our ultimate stance or ultimate decision on what the exact mix of in-office versus remote will be. Because I think that's very hard to make a decision on right now. And in particular, there's a huge confounder of everyone has been working remotely during a pandemic, but I think that's going to be very different to the steady state working remotely. What we do know is that Stripe is a very global company. We're dual headquartered across San Francisco and Dublin, and that's very important given our Irish roots and given how much of our business we do in Europe and how quickly that has been growing. And so we know we're going to be kind of multi-homed, and we'll have multiple hubs over time. And we're also going to have a very large remote population. We've always done a lot of remote hiring within the North America time zone. Actually, during the past year and a half, we opened up remote hiring in Europe. And so I think it's clearly going to be a mix. What the exact composition of those will be, it's kind of hard to say right now.